We've covered quite a few issues with Senator Portman today, talking a little bit about the budget, a little bit about terrorism, and really the way forward. But we mentioned this, Senator Portman, before we went to break, that more Americans have died because of opioid addiction than terrorist attacks in recent years. And not that we want to equate any deaths of any of Americans, but it's an interesting statistic just to continue to look at as we try to prioritize this issue. I was looking at one story from Ohio, your state, where a coroner in a particular area is actually running out of room because of the overdoses, and they don't know what to do with the bodies. I mean, that description hits home. I'm sure it does to you as well. What are we doing about this?
Yeah, Jenna, it's a terrible epidemic, and you're right, it's affecting every part of our state. It's the number one cause of crime also, largely people who are committing crimes to pay for the habit, to pay for the addiction, because it's costly. I was this morning at our Buckeye Coffee we do every week. A township trustee approached me and talked about the number of people who they are burying because of the overdose deaths, and that they can no longer afford to do so with indigent individuals. And he said because of opioids, they've had a big spike in these burials, and asked me how we could help there. What a dreadful situation. And so you're right, it's happening. There are coroner offices in Ohio where there are actually refrigeration trucks now that are pulled up next to the coroner's office because they don't have room in the coroner's facility. So this is a huge challenge for our country. Over 100 people are dying every day. More people have died in the last 3 years of overdoses and deaths than died in the Vietnam War. I mean, this is a significant issue. Number one cause of accidental death now in America, surpassing car accidents. And the new drug, which is causing so many problems, is a synthetic heroin. It's fentanyl or Carfentanil U4, but it's made in places like China. That's the place where most of it comes from, we're told. So there's some evil scientist in a laboratory somewhere cooking up this chemical mix that causes overdose and deaths. It's 30 to 50 times more powerful than heroin. And so we're having a hearing on this tomorrow in the permanent subcommittee on investigations to dig into this deeper and to talk about how we can keep some of this poison out of our communities.
I'm so curious about what you think the appropriate federal role is on this particular issue. How do you see the federal government working for American citizens, or is this really a local issue where you have communities that really need to come together and try to solve this problem?
Jenna, that's a terrific question, and I've spent a lot of time on this over 20 years in this issue of the drug prevention area particularly, and I guess my answer to that would be I think it's going to be solved ultimately in our communities, and it's going to be solved in our families, and really ultimately in our hearts, because this is an issue you can't legislate away. On the other hand, I'll give you an example. Our hearing tomorrow is about legislation called the STOP Act, and it simply says that the U.S. Postal Service, which is the primary way with which fentanyl, carfentanil is coming into our country, must put in place just the kind of measures that private carriers have to put in place. FedEx, UPS, DHL, and others, they have to let the law enforcement folks know where the package is coming from, what's in it, where it's going. The post office doesn't do that. As a result, traffickers are using the postal system to send this poison into our community. So clear federal role there, where the federal government, based on law enforcement folks I've talked to, could be much more effective if we give them this tool.
Wow.
Because then they can find not millions of packages, the proverbial needle in a haystack, but they can find suspect packages and try to stop some of this and at least increase the cost of it.
That is crazy to think about, that the Postal Service isn't following some of the same regulations that are for private companies. And here our own Postal Service is being used to deliver drugs to people. So we'll see, we'll watch and see any progress on that. Senator, it's great to have you on the program. We look forward to having you back.
Thanks, Jen. I really appreciate having me on.